Hello, this is Angela Kinney, and I'm the herbalist at Nature Made Gardens. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to learn about cleavers, another fun and interesting fact about the plants that grow in your yard. This is cleavers. So cleavers is actually an annual, but it puts on these little flowers, are put on these little sticky seeds, and those seeds will cast everywhere. Now in my wild yard, I want the cleavers to grow and harvest them, and I do lots of great things which we're going to talk about. But first I want to point out that cleavers is square stemmed. The leaves whirl around the stem. And it has a little white flower here. Now, when it first comes up, the flower doesn't show. It's just now showing. And the parts that you use of cleavers is you use the leaves, you can use the roots, and you can use the seeds. Now, the roots will will make a red dye if you're interested in plants that have those properties. The seeds you can use, and it's in the coffee family, and you can roast them and dry them and make a coffee drink with them. Now, I haven't used it that way. Maybe at some time I can demonstrate that. But where I use them is I use the leaves. And I will pick these, and when they're young, in my backyard edibles video, I talked about picking some of these and putting them in with my greens. But right now they're getting pretty tall, and see, these things they'll get pretty tall, and they cling to other plants. And see, these will then, the way you can tell that it's cleavers is they'll just stick to you. See, they have little sticky things around them, and when they put on the seeds, those things will stick to things, and they'll cast off seed and they'll spread, and that's how they spread. So the cleavers, the properties on the cleavers, it's a cooling plant, and it treats a hot condition or a stagnant condition. So it works very well for like a urinary tract infection. It's a diuretic. It's a lymph mover. And a lymph mover, you have a lymphatic system in your body, and your lymphatic system is in lots of parts of your body. You have it in your throat. You've got lymph glands in your throat, and so like when you get a cold, your lymph glands will swell up and try to fight that. You have them underneath your arms and in your breast, in your digestive tract, in your groin, and back behind your knees. And so the lymph system, the only way it can move is if you move. But there are herbs that will help to with that congestion, that stagnant lymph. And this is where I've had the best results and the most experience with cleavers. So I will pick these today, and I will dry them for a tea. And I've already picked some and fresh wilted it and made an oil. And if you want to know how to make an oil, you can watch my video about chickweed oil. Same method. You would fresh wilt it and then chop it up and make it into an oil with olive oil. And then I take that oil and I will make it with some other oils, put some other oils with it, and make a cream that reduces tumors. Now, I've had some really good results with cleavers. I also will tincture it, and in tincturing it, you take the plant and you take it in as a fresh plant, and you chop it up and you put it into a jar, and you will use like whatever size of jar you have. So like if you had a pint jar, you would fill this plant chopped up real fine and fill it up about 2/3 full of the jar. So if it's a jelly jar, if it's a pint jar, if it's a quart jar, if it's a half-gallon jar, you would fill it up 2/3 full. And there's 3 ways you can tincture a plant. And when I'm talking about tincturing a plant, you pull out all those properties of the plant. So there's 3 ways you can tincture it. You're extracting those plant properties. So you can tincture it with alcohol, and that would be like grain alcohol. You would pour that on there and put a lid on it and let it set for 6 weeks and then strain it off. And that form of tincture pulls out all the properties of the plant, and it will last for about 30 years. I mean, it'll last a long time. So you can make, you don't have to use as much plant when you make a tincture. And then it's concentrated, so you would just use a few drops each day for whatever condition that you're trying to treat with. Another way you can make a tincture is you can use organic apple cider vinegar, and that pulls out a lot of the minerals and the vitamins and that type of properties of the plant, and that will keep for about 2 years or so. It doesn't keep as long. It's still a good tincture, it just doesn't keep as long, and it's not pulling out every property. Another way that you could, and you would chop it up just like you did with the other one in the jar, and you'd pour your apple cider vinegar over it, and you would tincture it for 6 weeks and then strain it off. Another way you could tincture a plant is with a glycerin. You could use a vegetable glycerin, and you would use, you would put water with it also, and you would use water and glycerin, and you would pour it over the plant matter like you do the other ways I've told you, and you would tincture that for 6 weeks also, and you would strain it off, and so it would keep for about a year or two, about like the vinegar would. So the alcohol one is the one that will keep the longest and will have pulled out the most properties. So with this plant, I tincture it, and then I also make an oil, and then turn that oil into a cream that I use for tumors. So whenever I had a case where I had a client that came to me, and she had a tumor in her breast that was the size of her fist. And so we started working with her, and I made a cream that had Cleavers oil, it had violets that I made an oil out of, and I used a poke root oil too. I used the poke root and made an oil out of it all separately, and then used chaga mushroom for my liquid. Anyway, I made this cream and had her massage it on that tumor. Well, then she also took tinctures, and I also made a tea for the lymphatic system, and it was a lymph cleansing tea, and had several different plants in it, and one of the plants was Cleavers. So she started using that, and that tumor started draining and going down, and we're still working on it, but the tumor is now 70% smaller than it was before. I had another customer that come to me, and she had a tumor on her thyroid, and so we did the same thing that we did with the other one, except we added self-heal to the oil and to her regimen, and she did the tea, and the tea had the Cleavers in it, and she could feel that tumor draining down the back of her throat. Now this customer really documented herself, journaled and took pictures of the size, and she was also seeing a medical doctor, and so she started treating in August, and in January she had a biopsy, and the tumor had completely gone down to nothing, and the biopsy showed no signs of cancer, and it had markers for cancer before. So this is a common plant that grows in your yard, but yet it's got a powerful punch. So this is a plant that I think everybody should know, that our lymph system is a very important system. Stagnation in it can cause all kinds of problems in our health, and so I wanted to show you Cleavers today and show you how important it is. It's a weed that a lot of people just pull up out of their garden, out of their yard. I harvest mine and make medicine for people that are in need of cleansing their lymph system. So, fun and interesting facts about plants that grow in your yard, and this is Cleavers, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for joining me today.